Excellencies, Ministers, Members of the Queensland Parliament, Imams, Members of Government Department Agencies, academia, media, multi-faith and community leaders, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening and welcome to the 2014 Queensland Intercultural Society's co-hosted annual Peace and Dialogue Ifthaar dinner and the Queensland Intercultural Award ceremony. Now that was a bit of a mouthful, but it'll all work out. I greet you with the traditional Muslim salutation of Assalamu alaikum, or peace be upon you, and with the Australian salutation of good day, mate. My name is Mustafa Ally. I'm the editor-in-chief of Crescents Community News and the president of Crescents of Brisbane, and it is my really distinct honour and privilege to serve you as your MC for this evening. It's only appropriate that we start tonight's program with an acknowledgement of country, and I would like to recognize the traditional owners of the land we are meeting on, and I want to acknowledge their elders past and present and pay my respects to the Indigenous community of Australia. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of our co-hosts from State Parliament, the Honourable Glen Elmes MP, Liberal National Party, Mrs. Desley Scott MP, Australian Labor Party, and Mr. Abdul Celil Gelim, Executive Director of the Queensland Intercultural Society. I would also like to acknowledge Consul Generals, Ministers, Federal Senators, State Parliamentarians, members of the Diplomatic Corps, councillors representing the many and diverse communities of Australia, representatives from state and federal police, the media, academics representing many of the state universities, many religious and community leaders present, and all other distinguished guests. Tonight's function would not have been possible without the generous and magnanimous support of a number of individuals, businesses, and organizations. They are Multicultural Affairs, the Embassy of United Arab Emirates, United Arab Emirates Red Crescent, Supreme Islamic Council of Halal Meat in Australia Incorporated, Coca-Cola Australia, Schweppes Australia, this is getting to be thirsty work, Sunshine Kebabs, Australian Young Merchant Association, Sunshine Kebabs Anagra, Metin Dink Soy, Zaza Kebabs, Wisdom College, Queensland Education and Cultural Foundation, Chalish Koroglu, Arabesque Bazaar and Cafe, and the Gold Coast Turkish Bread. It's a tremendous honor and privilege to have all of you here this evening for this breaking of the fast. It's a time sacred to over 1.5 billion Muslims across the world, including more than 476,000 Australian Muslims. The Muslim fast begins just before dawn and ends at sunset. It is not only a time to abstain from food and drink, but also a time to discipline one's character, keeping them focused on their true purpose of creation. It is a time to reflect on God, family, and humanity at large. A time of thanksgiving, charity, and self-sacrifice. The fast ends with a call to prayer at sunset. By my reckoning, it's sunset. So to signal the end of the day's fasting and invite the faithful to prayer, I would like to invite Imam Abu Ghazaleh to call the Adhan. Imam Ghazaleh.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah. أشهد أن لا إله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
And we're now down to the other bits of the program, which is quite a few things that we have on. So I'll start off by just saying that according to Islamic tradition, the Quran was revealed over a 23-year period, and revelation started during the month of Ramadan. Muslims regard the Quran as the culmination of a series of divine messages that started with those revealed to Adam, regarded in Islam as the first prophet, and continued with the scrolls of Abraham, the Torah, the Psalms, and Gospel. The aforementioned books are not explicitly included in the Quran, but are acknowledged and recognized therein as the Word of God. The Quran also refers to many events from Jewish and Christian scriptures, some of which are retold in comparatively distinctive ways from the Bible and the Torah, while obliquely referring to other events described explicitly in those texts. Interestingly, the Quran reveals the Virgin Mary and the miracle birth of Jesus. It also makes more reference to the prophets Abraham, Moses, and Jesus than it does to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them. At this point, I would like now to invite again Imam Ahmed Abu Ghazaleh to the stage, and this time to give us a recitation from the Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فسبحان الله حين تمسون وحين تصبحون وله الحمد في السماوات والأرض وعشيا وحين تظهرون يخرج الحي من الميت ويخرج الميت من الحي ويحيي الأرض بعد موتها وكذلك تخرجون ومن آياته أن خلقكم من تراب ثم إذا أنتم بشر تنتشرون ومن آياته أن خلق لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها وجعل بينكم مودة ورحمة إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يتفكرون ومن آياته خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف ألسنتكم وألوانكم إن في ذلك لآيات للعالمين ومن آياته منامكم بالليل والنهار وابتغاؤكم من فضله إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يسمعون ومن آياته يريكم البرق خوفا وطمعا وينزل من السماء ماء فيحيي به الأرض بعد موتها إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يعقلون ومن آياته أن تقوم السماء والأرض بأمره ثم إذا دعاكم دعوة من الأرض إذا أنتم تخرجون وله من في السماوات والأرض كل له قانتون وهو الذي يبدأ الخلق ثم يعيده وهو أهون عليه وله المثل الأعلى في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. صدق الله العظيم.
Thank you, Imam Ghazali, for that beautiful recitation. Ladies and gentlemen, these dinners are held to bring people of different backgrounds together for the primary purpose of creating better awareness of the importance of this holy month of Ramadan to Muslims around the world, and to give you the opportunity to meet with each other. You will see around you people from diverse sectors of the community. As has been its long-held practice, the QIS adopts a very bipartisan approach to these functions, particularly in Parliament House, and we are indeed honoured to have both major political parties represented here tonight. While some politicians are still trying to build the Titanic, there is one minister who has already had a tinny named after him in Noosa waters. So I'd like to now call on the Honourable Glen Elmes MP, Minister for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander and Multicultural Affairs, and Minister assisting the Premier, to deliver his welcome speech to you.
I didn't know you were a fan of Facebook, Mustafa. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And the tinny that was referred to as a little rescue boat that goes around Lake Ifthaar. So if you're ever up in Noosa and you need saving and you see this boat hurtling towards you with my name down the side, you'll know exactly where the story came from. So that's great. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for your invitation to be with you tonight. And can I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to elders both past and present. Can I also acknowledge Desley Scott, the member for Woodridge, who's the Shadow Minister, amongst a lot of other things, for Multicultural Affairs, and as I said, my co-host here tonight. I was going through and I've got a list that goes over several pages of all of the important people, all of the people with great grandiose titles that are that come after their name. When I came in and I sat down and I looked around the room, I realised that I didn't have enough additional paper to write down the rest of the people that are important and have grandiose titles. So, ladies and gentlemen, can I just welcome you all and thank you all for coming. I was privileged, as Desley was last year, to be co-host for this Iftar dinner, and I think we probably had around half the people in the room this time last year as we have tonight. So I'm only presuming that the quality of the speeches you heard from Desley and I last year has brought many more people along to hear these great offerings that we have for you this year. So perhaps next year we'll be down at the convention centre. We'll just have to wait and see. I also just want to draw your attention to the little program guides that you have in front of you, and I made sure I got a blown-up copy of mine, and just want to draw your attention to this is the month of 7 dimensions, and I want to draw your attention to number 5. For those of you who understand the parliamentary process, you would know that at the moment we're going through the estimates process. And what estimates mean, and we had them on Tuesday, and we'll have some more tomorrow on Thursday, estimates is where the poor, defenceless minister goes in and is confronted by an array of very hostile, angry opposition members and they are questioned, they are grilled, and by the time we come out, normally we're crying and a complete, absolutely nervous wreck. But when I was reading through this tonight, I saw that under point 5, the month of network... I hope you're listening, Desley, pay attention. The month of network development. As a result of the Ifthaar dinners, academia, journalists, diplomats, bureaucrats and parliamentarians will be granted the opportunity to intimately liaise with and understand the mindset and values of Islamic leaders in a very sincere atmosphere. This will secure access to primary, reliable and accurate resources to utilise at times when an Islamic perspective on particular issues is required, rather than relying upon hearsay or heavily distorted perceptions. So tomorrow, when we start with estimates, I'm just going to read that out as the opening thing as soon as you come in. So and then go on my knees and beg for an easy time. Okay, look, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, I think that what we are doing here tonight and what has been organised by the Queensland Intercultural Society is one of the very important occasions and very important functions that we have on our calendar of events in this city. This is an opportunity, and I would just draw attention to it. This is an opportunity for people of all cultures and of all faiths to come together, to sit down and to converse, to understand each other better, and as a result of that, to make our city, our state, our country a much safer and more tolerant place than it is. I acknowledge the fact that we have with us tonight John McKell, previous Speaker of the Queensland Parliament, and I think, John, it was in your time that these dinners started, and this is the 8th time that this dinner has been held here at Parliament House. So I think not only is this a great idea and something that we should continue to have, when you look at the growth of the numbers who are here tonight to take part in this Iftar dinner, it shows the strength of the occasion and the understanding, I think, that we all have of its importance. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that Queensland's strength is found in its diversity. If you've heard me make a speech before, you'll hear me quote these numbers all the time, but it's very important. We live in a state with 220 different cultures that call Queensland home. We have as many different languages spoken. We have 100 different religious or faith systems and beliefs that are practiced in this state. And how far away are we from a little kid like me who grew up on the north side of Brisbane back in the 60s, when everyone in our community generally had blonde hair and blue eyes. The world and Queensland has moved on, and over a period of time we have welcomed waves of migrants that have come to live in our city and in our state. After the Second World War, the Greeks, the Italians, East Europeans, refugees who came to our country looking for a better life. In more recent times, after the Vietnam War, 100,000 or so Vietnamese fled South Vietnam to come to Australia to seek a better life. When I go around now and go to places like Moorooka and other places on the south side, and you see the latest wave of people who are coming to our community, the people from North Africa, from Sudan and Eritrea, the people from the Middle East, from Iraq, Iran, particularly Afghanistan. There are parts of Burma where we have accepting large numbers of refugees into our community. And I know, particularly in a gathering like this, I know that we are all very welcoming of them. And all of us, not just the government and not just community groups, but people individually are trying to do the very best they can to welcome people into into our community and give them as much advice we can, as much help as we can, so that they settle in, and for themselves particularly, there is a great opportunity to start a better life and to give their families a future that they would not have had in the country in which they've come from. It's also, I think, important not only to talk about people from particular countries, but also to speak of people of the Muslim faith. Because when I talked in many of those instances then of different countries where people have come from to live in Australia, we have people that come from the Middle East, as I said, from Africa and from Asia, from the subcontinent, from the Pacific region, from Europe, and of course then people who are born in Australia. And all of those countries and many more besides, many more regions beside, have very large or large Muslim populations. And I heard Mustafa say before, I think when we started off, 476,000 people of the Islamic faith who live now in Australia. And that's a figure that is growing rapidly. And from my point of view, when I move around, particularly and I have the opportunity to go to many of the multicultural events and cultural diversity type events that we have around this country and around the state, I am always welcomed very much when there are people of the Muslim faith around. This is a caring, sincere, peace-loving, religious faith, and I congratulate each and every one of you of the way you take your faith so seriously, and that in many ways, because from time to time there is some unfortunate bits and pieces that happen around the place, that you carry yourself with such dignity, and that you have, I think, pretty seamlessly manoeuvred yourself into the mainstream of our community and our society. This is, as I said, a culture and a religious movement that you should all be very proud of. And for Australians who aren't of your faith, we are very proud to have you as part of the great Queensland and Australian family. We are really fortunate to live in a country that prides itself on freedom of religion and freedom of speech. They are crucial components of a democracy. And tonight is it's a celebration and it's an acknowledgement of the work of the leaders in your community. Leaders who individually represent the best ideals of their communities and collectively represent the best ideals of a truly culturally diverse Australia. I really hope, as I said at the outset, that there are many more nights like this. There are many more opportunities for all of us to get together, to break bread, to have a conversation, to laugh, sometimes to cry, depending on what the circumstances are. But the important thing is that we do come together and we do talk. For as long as we talk, we are going to have the opportunity to continue on in this country with the great diverse and cultural ideals that we have. So can I just say to each and every one of you again my thanks for the invitation. I really enjoy coming along here. I really enjoy mixing in this community, and not just the Muslim community, but all of the communities that make up modern-day Queensland. So again, thank you very much for the invitation, and I wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Elmes. It's always a pleasure to hear what you have to say, particularly the unexpected bits. Now it gives me a great pleasure to do a bit of presentation here for our sponsors So, sorry, Glenn, while you were on stage, I'd like you to stick around a little bit so we can give out some recognitions here. So we have here. Yep. So first of all, we start with our platinum sponsor, Mr. Abdul Rahman Al Gardaka, who is the cultural attaché embassy of the United Arab Emirates and the UAE Red Crescent. So could he please come over? No, stay here, please. No. Mr. Mukhtar Sadian, who is the chairman of the Supreme Islamic Council of Halal Meat in Australia, known as SIGMA. Mr. Sadian. I think there's going to be a group shot, so I might have to call you a little later back again. Mr. Carl Ryan, a national business manager at Coca-Cola Amatil. Mr. Carl Ryan. Mr. Murad Joskun, Sunshine Kebabs. Have a great right. And in this category, finally, Mr. Brad Stafford, Schweppes, Australia. Now, so stay here. Sorry, Mr. Stafford, just stay here. Come back. Could I? I've been asked, according to my script here, I need a group shot. So I'm going to get this one way or the other. So if you can all just come back again.
I was going to say right.
Make the most of it, your 5 minutes of fame. Well, thank you, Glenn, for that. And thank you to all our sponsors. Ladies and gentlemen, we now please welcome our co-host, the other co-host, the Honourable Desley Scott MP of the Australian Labor Party. She's the Deputy Opposition Whip, the Shadow Minister for Disability Services, Community Services, Child Safety, Multicultural Affairs, and Women and Mental Health. I'm not sure if they go Women and Mental Health, or it's just Women, Mental Health, but... And you think you got a tough job.
Well, good evening, friends, and let me just acknowledge our wonderful traditional custodians of this land, and these days we share so much with them, and as we do with you tonight. So I need to put something straight when Glenn talks about facing the fierce opposition in Parliament here. There's one of us in each committee meeting. So we're very savage, aren't we, Glenn? But it's a real pleasure to be here again. And there are just so many people here from I guess, all sorts of communities and so on. And whenever we come to a dinner, and we were at an Iftar dinner for Iwak over at Michael's restaurant the other evening, and there's always a real warmth of welcome there, and so we appreciate that. We've got our Commissioner of Police and our former Commissioner here, and our Anti-Discrimination Commissioner here, and so many members of Parliament that come to just enjoy this time with you. And I guess over the years we've gained a great deal of the unity that we experience together of peace and understanding and so on. And we're a very, very different country now to many years ago. Actually, when I was young, and it was a long, long time ago, I was at primary school, but I remember a little group of kids from my state school used to go off after school to fight the Catholics. And now I think, wow, they used to have sticks and stones, didn't they, John? You know. and to think from that totally white, I guess, community up in Toowoomba, to then come to a function such as this. And I live out in Logan City, so Woodridge is just a wonderful, wonderful place to be. And we've just been talking at our table about the beautiful culture when you can walk down the street and have people smile at you in your national dress and so on. Those African women in those beautiful, colourful robes with a bubby tied on their back and their beautiful headgear and so on. I was talking to some from the Gold Coast the other day. They said to me, we don't wear our traditional costumes down on the Gold Coast because we feel a little uncomfortable. So I'm really glad that Woodridge is one of those beautiful cultures where you can, you know, feel comfortable to walk down the street and be proud of your culture. I was just saying that how important language and retaining all of those wonderful cultural parts, that all those good things of your culture that you bring to us. And at Woodridge Primary School they have now a lot of Cook Islander children coming from various schools in the area, and they're learning the Puka Puka language because it's one of the languages that is diminishing. And many of the parents really don't speak their language well anymore. And, you know, if you can grasp your mother tongue and be you understand and speak your mother tongue well, then you're going to be a better English student. So I've always been a great advocate of cultural schools because I think that's just very, very important. So we're here in our wonderful city to be able to enjoy the friendship of people from all around the world. And we celebrate our national days, our festivals together, and so much more. It's really brought a whole new world to us here in southeast Queensland. I guess I feel something's missing if I'm in an all-white community. And, you know, I just think the richness of what we have is very special. And you've brought your national dishes to us, so we really enjoy such variety in our food these days. And the one thing that all families enjoy are the aspirations that we have for our children. If you sit and listen to, and we probably in this room have maybe many who've come from difficult backgrounds in their home country, you can sit and listen to some of those recently arrived refugees. And the stories they tell, you can cry with them, but you can never, ever fully understand what they have gone through if you've been born in Australia. And those children come, they enrol them in our schools, and they have an absolute thirst for knowledge. It is simply wonderful. And I do wish that a lot of that rubs off on our children who've been born and bred here in Australia, because I think often they don't realise just the opportunities that are there for them. So just seeing those young refugee children in our schools learning their English language, and Woodridge High, Woodridge Primary are good examples where they have intensive learning support, very well set up to be able to really bring those children on a great deal. Actually, I don't know, Zuha Ali, are you here? Is she here today, this evening? Oh, she is. Zuha, stand up for a minute. I just want to say that on Acacia Road we have the Islamic College, and Zuha is actually my YMCA Youth Parliamentarian member for Woodridge this year. So well done, Zuha. So it was wonderful to meet her, and I came to they had a special launch of Youth Parliament here, and I know she's coming to have dialogue with me soon on some of the bills that they're going to be presenting. So that's a wonderful, wonderful experience for a young person to be able to be involved in. So I do wish her all the very best. So, look, as we look around the world, I think there are probably more trouble spots at the moment than I can recall in a long, long time. And having to flee your home and leave everything behind to go into another land and perhaps live in a refugee camp for, who knows, 20 years or so, and struggle to get to another country where you're accepted. We who've been born and bred here, can never ever understand just what that would be like. And I still look at those people that we see on TV and look at that and just see them going up dusty roads with their little children and so on. It's unimaginable that that still happens, that men learn nothing in the world about, wanting to clash over land and all sorts of things, and it's just a terrible, terrible thing to see. So I just welcome every single refugee who comes to our land, who comes looking for opportunities. Many of them are professional people in former life and have difficulty in actually gaining recognition for their former learning. But I know when people come here that they really appreciate having a land of opportunity and a land where they can settle peacefully and raise their children. And so, we from all these many cultures that are here tonight, for us to be able to sit and reach out a hand of friendship to people who come here, I think is very special. And I look on Muslim people as being people with high values, people who love their children, who work hard, and I always enjoy being able to come to such a dinner as this and just to be able to sit and dialogue together, learn, gain more knowledge about how your families live, where you've come from, and having knowledge and understanding just leads to more friendship and more warmth and so on in our communities. So thank you to Glenn for allowing me to share hosting, and thank you to Abdul and his Queensland Intercultural Society. You've worked very hard, and I think they had a little hiccup when they arrived, different numbers at tables, so they've done well to be able to fit everyone in. But it's really a joy to be able to do this. By this time next year, I'll be retired. And so I'm getting to that stage in Parliament now where I'm saying, this is my last estimates week, and such things as that. But I tell everyone I've reached the age that Joe Hockey said we should retire at, so I think I'm well past it, but it's been a huge privilege to be the member for Woodridge, and to have such a wonderful, wonderful community there. And yes, there'll be many things that I will miss, but it will be a whole new world. And I want to wish everyone here all the very best.
Thank you, Desley, for those very thoughtful, thought-provoking. If you don't mind, yes, please. I was going to ask you to come along again. I'm sure I'll be taking a few liberties, but even after retirement, I'm sure there's a spot there booked permanently for you here.
No, Mr. McKelkin comes, doesn't he?
It's now my pleasure also to give out more certificates to, and this time to our bronze sponsors. So I'd like to call on Mr. Kenan Boz, the Queensland Education and Cultural Foundation member. We are going to need another group photograph, but I'll have to call you back, otherwise we won't get these individual shots, right? Mr. Ismail Ishik from Zaza Kebab. Don't walk too far back. Mr. Metin Dinksoy from Sunshine Kebabs franchisee Enogra. Not here? No, okay. In his absence, somebody will hand it over to him. Mr. Kursat Duan, Australian Young Merchant Association. Mr. Salha Al-Daifut from the Arabesque Bazaar. Mr. Ahmed Abu Wisdom College. Eza Ilhan from the Gold Coast Turkish Bakery. Oh, okay. That's it. Okay, thank you for that. And one group shot. So if all of the recipients please come back on stage. Thank you, Daisy. Thank you for that. I think I should tell you a little bit about what the Queensland Intercultural Society is all about. It has over the 10 years been promoting harmony among Queenslanders from diverse cultural and religious backgrounds through interfaith and intercultural dialogue. The QIS has been inspired by the Golden Movement, of which I'll tell you a little later. It is committed to building bridges and promoting social cohesion. That's in a nutshell. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please welcome on stage another of our co-hosts, Mr. Abdul Celil Gelim, the Executive Director of Queensland Intercultural Society, to say a few words.
Thank you very much. I have to keep short. Distinguished Minister, members of Federal and State Parliament, State Government Department Directors, Senators, Consul Generals, members of media, academia, councils, respected guests from mosques, churches and synagogues, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Queensland Intercultural Society, it is a great honor to warmly welcome each and every one of you this evening to this wonderful peace and dialogue Iftar dinner. I would like to also thank to our co-hosts from the two largest parties in the Queensland Parliament to express my sincere appreciation the Honourable Glen Elmes and also Mrs. Desley Scott. By co-hosting and supporting such meaningful event, the Parliament of Queensland has become a catalyst and plays an instrumental role towards breaking barriers, stereotypes, bigotry, and towards our shared goal of building the ideal, cohesive, inclusive, and harmonious society, as well as promoting community harmony, dialogue, and friendship. Ramadan is a climate of compassion and mercy. In these blessed days, when patience and tolerance prevail, we once more remember love, peace, modesty, cooperation, and bridging dialogue gap among different cultures, as well as the members of the society we live in. During this month, Muslims observe fasting. These are very important themes for Muslims in the month of Ramadan, from the personal spiritual development to worship, to sacrifice, empathy, and charity. For Queensland Intercultural Society, tonight is one of the most special dinner in the whole month of Ramadan. Tonight is a good reminder of how far we have become as an organization. Our first dinner in this Parliament House Premier Hall in 2007. Tonight is our 6th Iftar dinner in the Queensland Parliament House. This year also, QIS, we are hosting many home Iftar dinners and some institutions Iftars during the Ramadan. They are all interfaith and intercultural in nature. Here, I would like to sincerely thank the more than 15 host families for extending their hospitality to us. It is pleasing to witness that Ramadan is becoming a month for everyone, a month where old friendships are strengthened and new friendships are made. Coming together here at one table is really a situation of richness, and this table fellowship offers remarkable opportunities for mutual understanding, sympathy, tolerance, friendship, and for creating a society rooted in common values. His Eminence, Imam Fethullah Gülen, has been an inspiration to me, QIS, and many Muslims around the world for this non-confrontational approach to resolving common issues of humanity, whether it be ignorance, poverty, and social injustice. This antidote to these issues is to start with oneself. As he says, those who want to reform the world must first reform themselves. If they want to lead others to a better world, they must purify their inner worlds of hatred, rancor, and jealousy, and adorn their outer walls with virtue. I guess this is every peace builder challenge, that is to first to be a source of peace, so it overflow to those around you. As I mentioned, today world facing with many problems such as ignorance, poverty, and social injustice. Whoever killing people name of the religion, in my understanding, they can't be a human being and religious person. Whoever kill people in the Middle East, Syria, Iraq, and all around the world, name of the religion, they can't be true religious person. And also, Fethullah Gülen says, in true Islam, terror does not exist. In Islam, killing a human being is an act that is equal in gravity of unbelievers. No person can kill a human being. No one can touch an innocent person, even in the wartime. Today, finally, Gülen, he's saying also, terrorist cannot be a Muslim, Muslim cannot be a terrorist. Also, religious person cannot be terrorist cannot be a religious person. For that reason, I also strongly condemn some name of the Islam, some people who are killing innocent people in Syria and Iraq. Whoever terrorized, they can't be a Muslim. And also, I strongly condemned Israeli attack on Gaza also. As you know, many innocent people dying nowadays. So I am finishing. I hope this evening inspiring to you, inspiring by the people you see all around you, and you have extended their hospitality to us. It is hospitality of sharing this table together, but more profoundly, it is hospitality of heart and soul. This is the deepest hospitality we can express. Finally, I hope that this evening motivates all of us here to continue our efforts to create a world of peaceful coexistence through interaction, cooperation, and dialogue. Once again, I wish this special time of the year for the Muslim community will open the doors of mercy upon all of us. I greet everyone with deepest respect. I wish the peace and blessing of Ramadan be upon you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abdul, for those very thought-provoking and very pertinent words that you've uttered here today. While I have Abdul here, I would like to now invite the Honourable Glen Elmes and Mrs. Desley Scott to come along for a special presentation.
First, red one. Can I believe that one. This is the blue one.
Blue one.
I said blue for the boy.
Oh, love, that's wonderful.
And also for Desley. But this time inside is blue. So
Okay, thank you, Abdul, and thank you. Once again, I'd like to thank our co-hosts for supporting this Iftar dinner. Our parliamentarians in particular drive the wheels of democracy, and it's a pleasure to have you all with us tonight to share in our customs so that all our lives are further enriched. I see dessert is making its way to the tables. Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, these Iftar dinners are not only an opportunity for new friendships to be formed and deepen our existing relations, but also a time to share our experiences. To provide the keynote presentation for the evening, could you please join me in welcoming Dr. Tim Sootpong Mahasaran. And I've got this long sheet here of his achievements. We could actually be here right until Suhoor. If I read every bit of it, that's an in-joke. What Suhoor is the time for starting the fast. So we've had Iftar where we broke it. Suhoor will be 5 in the morning, and that would how long it would take me to read through all this. But what I will do is just give you a brief background to Dr. Tim Sootpong Mahasaran. He is the Race Discrimination Commissioner and commenced his 5-year appointment on 20th of August 2013. Prior to joining the Australian Human Rights Commission, he was a political philosopher at the University of Sydney. His thinking on multiculturalism and national identity has been influential in shaping debates in Australia and Britain. During his term, Dr. Sootpong Mahasaran aims to be an advocate for a fairer Australia and drive the Commission's efforts to combat racism. He is the author of 3 books, The Virtuous Citizen, Don't Go Back to Where You Came From, and Reclaiming Patriotism. He's also an opinion columnist with The Age and the Weekend Australian newspapers, and in 2013 presented Mongrel Nation, a 6-part documentary series about Australian multiculturalism on ABC Radio National. He's the first-generation Australian of Chinese and Lao extraction. Dr. Sootpong Mahasaran was raised in southwest Sydney. He completed his Doctor of Philosophy at the University of Oxford, from where he holds a Master of Philosophy degree with distinction, and he has a first-class honours graduate of the University of Sydney. Could I please invite Dr. Sootpong Mahasaran to come along to address us?
Well, thank you very much for that warm introduction, and can I second the sentiment about how great it is to see dessert being served, because the last thing I want to do is to stand between everyone's dessert. It's a real honour to be with you this evening, and I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the Turrbal people, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I also acknowledge our hosts this evening, Minister Glen Elmes, Mrs. Desley Scott, Abdul Celil Gelim. Also acknowledge parliamentarians who are here tonight. My colleague, Mr. Kevin Cox, the Anti-Discrimination Commissioner. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. One of the joys and privileges of living in a multicultural society is to be able to observe and sometimes share in the practices of others. How wonderful it is that groups such as the Intercultural Society have instituted dinners like the one tonight. It's a very generous way for Australians of the Islamic faith to open the doors of their traditions to us. At the same time, occasions such as tonight are a time for all of us to take up this invitation of cultural learning. I've been asked this evening to offer some remarks about human rights and its role in combating racism and fostering understanding. Now, to speak about human rights for some is something that may seem a little vague. What exactly are human rights? How may they make practical sense? If we are to understand human rights as being concerned with principles and international law, they may indeed seem remote from everyday experience. Yet for me, the work of human rights is rather more simple. even as they are embodied by international law, human rights have fundamental simplicity. To respect human rights is to believe, as it's expressed in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, that they are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. This is the spirit that animates my work and that of the Australian Human Rights Commission concerning race. Our work is about ensuring every person in our society is free to live their lives with security, dignity, and respect. Because when someone experiences racism, the harm that is inflicted can strike at the core of their being as a person. It goes to the heart of their individual liberty. We are reminded of this whenever we see an episode of racial abuse reported in the media. Just a fortnight ago, as you will know, a woman on a train in Sydney delivered an extraordinary tirade of racial abuse on a fellow passenger of an Asian background. Earlier this year, there was a violent incident on a bus on the Gold Coast where two young women physically attacked a man they believed to be Aboriginal. Last month, newspapers here reported a series of racist attacks on an Indian restaurant in Ipswich, one of which was caught on mobile phone camera. Such incidents reinforce that racism has not withered on the vine of social progress. Rather, like a noxious weed that constantly returns, it requires our constant attention. It's a sobering thought to be reminded that about 1/5 of Australians, or 20%, say that they've been subjected to verbal racial abuse. About 1 in 20, or 5%, say that they've been physically assaulted because of their race. I should add that the incidence of racism is considerably higher for people of certain backgrounds. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people experience racial discrimination in a most systemic way. Social surveys show that people from non-English speaking backgrounds experience markedly higher levels of racial discrimination. And there is, in addition, bigotry that is directed at people on other grounds. Religious bigotry can also have profound effects on racial tolerance. One cannot necessarily be quarantined from the other. And again, recent incidents have demonstrated the live nature of such phenomena. In the Victorian town of Bendigo, there was a protracted and widely publicised protest against the recent construction, the proposed construction of the town's first mosque. Some of the objections reflected hostility towards the Islamic faith. This was by no means the first time that there have been objections to the building of mosques, and it's unlikely to be the last. Yet we should be clear about one thing. Living in an Australian liberal democracy means enjoying certain fundamental freedoms, not least the freedom of association, the freedom of conscience, the freedom of worship. But we can take some heart from the Bendigo community's response. The city of Greater Bendigo stood firm in approving the application for building the mosque. There was strong leadership from the federal Member of Parliament there, Lisa Chesters. There was also bipartisan political leadership from Victoria's State Parliament in supporting Bendigo's Muslim community. And the majority of the Bendigo community have made clear their support as well for multiculturalism and religious tolerance. Earlier this week, the Mayor of Bendigo, Councillor Barry Lyons, announced that the city would take up my invitation to support the Racism It Stops With Me campaign. Now, this is a public awareness campaign that invites organisations across the country to take a stand against prejudice and discrimination. In the time that it's been running since 2007, more than 270 organisations across the country have joined as supporters, and many more are happily joining. Leadership matters when it concerns race and human rights, but we shouldn't leave it to civil society alone. It's important that our commitment to harmony and tolerance is also expressed through our law. During the past year, of course, we have had intense public debate about the role of the law in combating racial vilification, namely about Section 18C of the Racial Discrimination Act. As many of you would know, Section 18C makes unlawful an act that is reasonably likely to offend, insult, humiliate or intimidate others on racial or ethnic grounds. This has been a provision that has existed for almost 2 decades, and it has enjoyed widespread public support. A Fairfax Nielsen poll in April this year showed that 88% of Australians believed it should remain unlawful to racially offend, insult or humiliate others. I can't think of many social questions where you can get 88% of people agreeing. This, make there be no mistake, is an emphatic statement of Australians' commitment to racial tolerance. And in my view, it's a commitment that should remain protected in our law. Because the danger of weakening protections against racial vilification is that it may license racial hatred. It may encourage people to believe that a right to be a bigot outweighs a right to be free from bigotry's effects. Now is not the time to be saying that racial prejudice is acceptable. As with so many aspects of our public life, tone matters. And it's on this note that I'll conclude this evening. The task of fostering cultural dialogue and understanding is not easy. It requires humility, patience, and a humane spirit of cooperation. It's hard work, but it's important work. And I commend the efforts of organisations like the Intercultural Society. We should be grateful for the opportunity that you present us with to learn from the traditions of others and to reflect on what they may also say about our own traditions. During the month of Ramadan, Muslims believe that their fasting allows them not only a renewed sense of spirituality, but also a deeper sense of compassion, charity, and discipline. For non-Muslims like me, occasions like this are indeed a time to pause and to consider what I can learn from my Muslim fellow citizens. I wish you a blessed Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim, for those words of wisdom. I'm sure that many of the things that you brought up there are things that are close to home to many of us, and in particular the impact of the attempted change to the Act 18C and B shows the power of community lobbying and what impact it can have, to the extent that now we hopefully it's on ice at the moment and that it'll never be seen again. But certainly shows that when people are of the same mind about something, that things can be changed, and we do certainly have power to do that. Thank you once again. We now move on to a more soothing segment of the program, I'm told, and this is Turkish classic music. Sufism is generally understood to be the inner mystical dimension of Islam. Classical Sufi scholars have defined Sufism as a science whose objective is the reparation of the heart and turning it away from all else but God. Often this is expressed through a life of humility and godliness. At other times this is characterized by movements such as the whirling dervishes and spiritual music. To entertain us with a performance of spiritual music, I'd like to welcome Seçkin Bey and his group called the Istanbul Groove to come along.
Rather interesting. I'm sitting next to a man of Indian descent from South Africa who started off doing medicine before he got into business and then emigrated to Australia 16 years ago. I think on his left-hand side I've got a man who's standing for the Labor Party in the seat of Logan, and to my immediate right, I had the Turkish consul, and I think his wife, although I'm not certain, but he's now gone. So, I thought it was fascinating, and I had heard the speech given by the man who was Tim Soffermain, who I read in the paper, and I heard all the different speeches of the different ministers and some of the others. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm always interested to hear what other people have got to say.
So what are your thoughts on interfaith dialogue?
Look, I'm a Catholic. I think that I grew up in an era which I don't think was bigoted. I think that there's always going to be an element of somewhat hostility between the different religions. I think that's a difficult word, but I think when you've got massive populations of people with probably differing aspirations and probably somewhat different backgrounds whereby their history is somewhat different, that they're always going to find it difficult. I mean, within reason in Australia, you've probably got an element of at least a chance because there's not as many people. I think that's a factor. And so that gives people of all sorts of religions a chance to peacefully coexist. I have great concerns about what's going on in the rest of the world at the moment. I worry that there's a lot of young people who are getting very angry. I think there's people who are becoming zealots. I think it's very easy to use a religion to justify what really is a political objective. I think we've probably seen that historically throughout the centuries, and the end result isn't all that good. But look, these sort of things, they're a lot better than, people throwing things at one another, which was raised by Desley earlier on, and I think it's a bit like, playing sport. You're far better off getting people to, in some ways, have a method where they actually talk to one another. They don't necessarily have to even agree to disagree, but they have to be able to respect and understand one another's position. It remains to be seen whether, that ends up as the way these things probably will work out over time. Look, I come from a family that have traded for all our lives, so I've tended to think that the best way to break down barriers is not just talking to people, but to work out means by which you can mutually benefit from one another. A lot of wars actually start when people stop trading with one another. And the difficulty people have is that, one person needs something when another person's got something, and you've got to try and... It is a bit like sharing, and what tends to happen is that at certain times commercially, one group tends to see a commercial benefit over the other, and what people have got to realise is that they've got to not mix up those joint things and mix religion into it. I don't think the Islamic faith is any worse than any other, but to tell you the truth, I think they've all got a lot of baggage, and I think they really need to do something, all of them.
Thank you so much for your input.
Being proud of one's history and traditions while embracing the values and institutions of modern Australia resonates strongly with Australian Muslims. His dignified demeanour and work in fostering interfaith and community dialogue inspires many. It is my pleasure to call on Associate Professor Mohammad Abdalla, founder and director of the Graduate Islamic Research Unit, to receive this well-deserved and prestigious award, and call on Mr. Elmes to present the award. Now all I need is the award.
You still tell him, and then he will leave his life, and then... To read his life, and then this beer. Maybe you can read this one, and then you can call.
Right. I need a teleprompter here. Now my pleasure to call... before I call on him, let me just tell you about him. So we have an exceptional recipient for this year's Queensland Public Service Award.
Mohammad Abdullah, can he say a few words?
Oh, yes. Well, I'll do that. Yeah. Somebody should have rehearsed this. So someone who, in addition to being an absolute gentleman and a long-standing friend of the community, has given distinguished service to policing and to the community of Queensland through his leadership in law enforcement and through his community and cultural engagement. I think we could be here all evening talking about him, but I think I'd rather call on the current Commissioner of Police, Mr. Ian Stewart, to tell you something about his former boss.
Mustafa, thank you very, very much, and can I thank our hosts for the honour of presenting this award. It's not me. Please understand that. But I'd just like to read out a little bit of the bio of the actual awardee. He began his career as a constable in the Queensland Police Force, as it then was, in 1968. He performed a wide range of operational and managerial roles, serving throughout Queensland, from Goondiwindi to Cairns to Brisbane. He was a detective for approximately 20 years and acted as a police prosecutor in various magistrates' court during this period. In 1989, he attended Quantico, Virginia, the FBI National Academy course in the United States. He also again attended the FBI Academy in 2002 for the National Executive Institute program. In 2000, he took office as the Commissioner of the Queensland Police Service until his retirement 2 years ago in 2012. In 2013, he was appointed one of the 6 Royal Commissioners to the Australian Government Royal Commission into institutional responses to child sexual abuse. During his career, he has received a number of honours and awards for his services, including the Centenary Medal for Distinguished Service to the Public Sector in 2001. In January 2013, he received the Officer of the Order of Australia Award for his distinguished service to policing and to the community of Queensland. Through leadership in law enforcement, community and cultural engagement, improved service delivery and contributions to professional development. I would like to announce that Mr Bob Atkinson, the former Commissioner of the Queensland Police Service, has won this award. Thank you.
There's no such thing as a free award. You actually have to say something, so I'm told. So I want to call back Dr. Mohammad Abdalla to say some nice words with his award.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wa sallam. Well, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and may the peace and blessings of God be upon you all. I am indeed humbled by this most wonderful achievement that I don't believe I deserve, but I'm truly grateful for having thought that I deserve this award. I am very honored to be standing before a galaxy of men and women who have served the community far better than I have, but it is through your generosity and kindness that you thought I deserve this award. I believe that all of us as human beings have a role to play in enhancing our multiculturalism and also our societies. A theme that I run across all of my courses that I teach at university, and a theme that I advocate in my discourses and speeches and lectures to young and old, to men and women, is that of interconnectedness of civilizations and not clash of civilizations. If we are all to dig deep and objectively look at our history and indeed our humanity, we would find that there is more that connects us than otherwise. Unfortunately, it is often our own prejudices that disunite us from the reality of our humanness. I am particularly honored to receive this award from the Queensland Intercultural Society. I was honored 2 months ago to go to Istanbul, the city of empires. Istanbul, which is a most magnificent city to which I hope all of you will be able to visit one day, not only to enjoy the splendid food, but also the wonderful hospitality of its people. And I was invited there not only to partake in a very important international conference on the question of ijtihad, not jihad, ijtihad, independent legal reasoning. When I was going through the customs at the Melbourne airport heading towards Istanbul, I handed my passport. My son was with me, Abdul Celil, he's 16. And so the custom officer looks at me and he says, "What's the purpose of your visit to Turkey?" And my son, who was on the other counter, I looked at him and smiled, and I looked at this custom officer in the eyes and said, "I'm going to attend a conference on ijtihad." He said, "What?" I said, "Ijtihad." He said, "What's that?" I said, "You could call it jurisprudence. He said, what's that? So anyhow, so not only did I attend a conference on this important issue of independent legal reasoning and how we can begin to interpret and contextualize Islamic law in the modern context, but also I had the absolute honor and privilege of seeing firsthand the work of the Hizmat movement, which was originated and started in the 70s by Fathullah Gurum himself. And I was very much struck by the amazing efforts that is being undertaken by millions of volunteers, literally millions of volunteers. And in fact, another name for the Hizmat movement is the movement of volunteers. And I was amazed at how much work they have done in terms of education, building of schools, not only in Turkey itself now, but it has become a transnational or international movement that has schools all over the world. But even so, I also saw how they looked after orphans in terms of orphanages, libraries, they have universities, and now also they have one of the most organized and well-established humanitarian organizations that looks after those who are much in need. And so it opened my eyes really to this wonderful achievement by a group of men and women who often go unnoticed in the media because they do a lot of peaceful work. It is unfortunate that only the media would represent such minority voices in the Muslim world who act in radical, extreme ways that unfortunately tarnishes the name of the Islamic community by and large. But yet, when you see a community like this, where millions, literally, of volunteers doing unbelievable amount of peaceful humanitarian work, you hardly hear about it. But I hope that tonight all of you have heard about it, and I hope that we all continue, despite our religious differences and despite our ethnic differences, continue to work towards a common goal, and that is bringing human people or humanity together so that we can enhance our societies and our world indeed. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I wish you a good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Abdalla, for those words. I'm always fascinated by how you can give such a profound speech this one evening, and just yesterday you were telling us at the mosque to take our water bottles home. So there's a story there. Bob, you don't get to escape the limelight for a few minutes, so can I call you, please, to say a few words?
Thank you, Mustafa, and can I acknowledge you as the MC tonight? What an outstanding job. Well, I also would like to acknowledge the traditional owners, and I'd like to come back to that in a moment and try to make some sense of a short story I'd like to share with you. You've heard some wonderful speeches this evening. That had to end at some stage, you realise that, don't you? I'm not going to be very long, but I would like to acknowledge all of the other speakers, and I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Abdalla. After 12 years as the Police Commissioner, what a privilege that was. You do get an insight into leadership, and aspects of leadership include having respect and regard for someone, admiration, and having a desire whenever an opportune time arises to associate with people who you see as leaders. And Mohammad, Dr. Abdalla, you are certainly a person in my view in that category and always have been. The word police and the word politician, I'm told, derive from the same word, a Greek word, poly, P-O-L-I. And what it means is a sense of good order in the community. Now, I can assure you I have never, having seen what their lives are like, aspired to be a politician and never will be one. But at local, state and federal government level, there are many people, and most people in politics, who work very hard to create a sense of good order in our community. And a good police department does that as well, works with others to establish a sense of good order in the community. I would like to thank everyone who has helped us over time, in my time and now in Stuart's time, to achieve that. If I could come back to that point about the traditional owners. I went to a multicultural event once at Woodridge, and a very dignified Aboriginal elder did the welcome to country. And he did that, and then he talked about his own background, his own tribe, and then he said these words: "But at the end of the day, there's only one race that really matters." And I sort of caught my breath and I thought, what's he about to say? And he said, and that race is the human race. And you've probably heard that before, but it's something that I thought was very special. So in terms of good order in our community, I think that we have that, and we have wonderful opportunity and potential. The concept of the only race that matters being the human race is one that I think we probably all aspire to. Idealistic, yes. Utopian, yes. But if there is a chance of that happening anywhere, I think there's a real chance of it happening here in Queensland. And the reason for that is because of a room full of people such as yourselves who have the commitment, the leadership, the drive, the energy, the dedication to achieving such a goal. Thank you for the award. It's very special. It means a great deal to me. I wish you all the best for the future, and I hope to share the future with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob, for those words. We're almost at the end, but it gives us a chance now to get some reflections from you sitting out there, and after what you've heard and what you feel about things. So I'd like to, we've already selected a few people and we've given up a bit of a heads up, but certainly the floor is open to anyone who would like to say something. So, I'll start off by calling on Senator Mark Ferner, who's the Senator for Queensland, to say a few words. Have we got a roving mic here? Or? We have? And if anybody else wants to say anything, if you don't mind, when you do get the microphone, if you just sit up and give us your name and your position or title, and then an organisation you belong to, and we're most happy to listen to you. Okay, well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Can I ask you to come right over here and speak straight to the audience?
Thank you, Mustafa. Assalamu alaikum, or as Mustafa suggested earlier, g'day, how are we? Look, we're all winners tonight, despite the fact there has been many winners chosen out of this evening's audience. We're all winners as a result of what we've been able to experience here this evening, enjoying one another's company, our culture, our experiences, and also some fine speeches as past Commissioner Bob Atkinson suggested. But also, I'd really like to congratulate Abdul Gelim and his organisation for making this event possible. And in addition to the warm hospitality that I experienced the other evening at Koskin's family's residence, I found it such a humble and warm experience to go into someone's home that you've never met before, to sit down and break bread and enjoy a fantastic evening and learn a bit from each other. The exchanges were reciprocal in terms of what we learned from one another, but I think the more and more that happens in our society, the better off we will be as an organisation that has made this possible, but also as citizens of this country and an amazing community. Just in reflection also, can I suggest, I have a experience, I guess, some years ago when I became a senator, and you must stop calling me a senator because unfortunately that term expired on the 30th of June this year, but I have other quests in front of me. But one of my opportunities arose when I hired a young Muslim man to come into my office, and from then on I've always been a strong believer in multiculturalism. It is important that we as a country are diverse and accept that as a place for our existence and also our future. And from there I opened my opportunities and experience and understanding of the Muslim society and also Islam. And I found it quite a rewarding opportunity to get to understand and appreciate the religion, the community, and I was so blessed to have that opportunity afforded to me. And once again, I'm very blessed to be here this evening, and I wish you all the best for the rest of Ramadan that continues, and a safe and happy existence as a result of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. You'll always be a senator to us. Mr. Steve Armitage, the Commissioner of Youth. Sorry.
I'll do it.
Yeah, youth. Please.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Ramadan Kareem. I'm Steve Armitage, the Commissioner, or Principal Commissioner for the newly formed Queensland Family and Child Commission as part of the huge reform that the government's embarked on of the child protection system, the most vulnerable members of our Queensland community. My reflection, and thank you for the opportunity to speak for a few minutes, it's apt at this time of reflection to remind ourselves that the greatest contribution we can make to peace and harmony is within ourselves. To strengthen what Abraham Lincoln once said or referred to as the better angels of our nature. Those attributes, human attributes, that drive us away from violence, dominance, revenge and blind ideology to cooperation and altruism. The attributes of compassion, self-control, moral strength and reason. That is what I believe, and that is certainly what I've heard that we are celebrating tonight through Ifthaar. We must redouble our efforts in whatever field of endeavour we have throughout the coming year to ensure that these attributes are embedded in all of our actions, large and small. Coming together with all our diversity brings us understanding and respect. We have more in common than difference. It is our responsibility to use that common bond to build a world where our children and families can prosper and fulfil their potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I'm going to just break from the floor reflections because I did actually omit one very important part of the programme, which was to invite our gold sponsor, Mr. Mukhtar Sadian, who is the chairman of the Supreme Islamic Council of Halal Meat in Australia, to say a few words. Could you come along to the stage, please? Yeah.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here to say this Ramadan Iftar dinner organized by Queensland Intercultural Society. For those of you who don't know me, I'm from New South Wales. I represent Supreme Islamic Council of Halal Meat in Australia, which is short SIGMA. My name is Mukhtar Sadian, Chairman of SIGMA. SIGMA is the organization to approach when you are looking for quality halal certification that you can trust. Accredited by ACWIS, DAF, the new name. SIGMA is one of the leading and recognized certification bodies in the industry. SIGMA began operating in 1992 and have since extended our services to cover both the domestic and international export markets. SIGMA has become one of the principal providers of halal certification and halal advisory services to Australian companies processing and exporting meat and processed foods to all Muslim destinations without exception or hindrance. Our corporate vision is to offer services to consumers and clients of the halal industry in line with the recognized method of food production prescribed in the Islamic law. We believe in the vast potential for Australian businesses and industries to extend and benefit from the rapidly growing international halal market worth over $1 trillion. The full extent of this opportunity is not yet visible due to the lack of a uniform halal standard in Australia. Sigma is actively engaged with the government to facilitate this process for all parties involved. We are honoured to be able to be here and give a speech to you as distinguished guests, and we are celebrating the holiest month of the Muslim calendar year, Ramadan. It is a time for peaceful reflection and for prayer. It is a time for acts of compassion and charity. So to all of you tonight, and to the Muslims across Australia, and to the many more around the world, Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you.
Well, that was a word from a sponsor. Right, we move on to Mr. Kevin Cox, who is the, before Mr. Kim Scott, Mr. Ian Stewart, Queensland Police Commissioner, to say a few words.
No, thank you again for this wonderful honour of being here tonight, and I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners. I'd like to acknowledge our co-hosts, the Queensland Intercultural Society, all of the very distinguished guests in the room, the two awardees tonight. What a wonderful thing it is that people of this calibre are acknowledged by all of us here tonight. All of my friends in the room, my fellow DG, Kelvin Anderson's here from the Public Safety Business Agency, the brother agency within our portfolio, the many MPs who are here tonight, members of the local government, former senators, former members of Parliament, but all of you who are here tonight, just what a wonderful night and way to come forward. I was asked to provide a short reflection, and I'd just like to you to consider this. I think a great society values diversity, understands diversity, embraces diversity, supports diversity, but ultimately respects diversity. And in every speech, in every comment I've heard tonight, either that word respect was there or it was inferred. And quite honestly, when I look around this room and I see the number of my colleagues who are here, and I'd like every one of them to stand up, please, the current forming police officer, former and current police officers. Bob, you stay there. You're fine. Thank you. My reason for asking my colleagues to stand is to assure you that your police department, the Queensland Police Department, respects diversity, and we work very, very hard every day to ensure that those networks, those relationships, that engagement with our entire community, including this community, is of the highest calibre. So thank you for giving me the honour of speaking. Thank you for giving my colleagues and I the honour of being here tonight with you. Thank you.
Ian, I hope you haven't blown somebody's cover. Could I call on Ms. Yasmin Khan from Eat First Queensland to say a few words?
Thank you very much. I thought you said that you told everybody that they were going to speak, because it's news to me. Somebody didn't give me a heads up. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you to Abdul Celil and his team. I was honoured that I was approached in the beginning to help put a lot of this together, but I only did a little bit of it because it's a lot bigger than what I anticipated. And yeah, this room is far too small. It's getting bigger and bigger every year, and it's great that everybody's here. And more people come, and more people are interested to come, and I think that is a good indication of we as a Muslim community who are opening our doors a little bit more, and that's something that we tried to do certainly with Eid Fest, who this year celebrates its 10th year. And 10 years ago we started for this very reason, was to bring, first of all, our community together, but to open doors to highlight and showcase the Muslim community and let the wider Brisbane public and the Queensland public know who the Muslim people are and what we've got to offer, and that includes people that have just arrived today and people like my family who have been here for 150 years. So we have a legacy in this community and we have a legacy in this state, and we just wanted to share that with you. And Iftar dinners and Eid Fest and lots of other things that we're starting to do in the community are an indication of who we are and where we want to go. And it's great that we encompass everybody in showcasing the Muslim tradition, the Muslim culture, the Muslim religion and the Muslim community. Thanks very much.
Not bad for an impromptu speech. Thank you, Yasmin. Don't forget, Eid Fest straight after Ramadan. Right, well, now I open the floor. If anybody has some burning things to say that you really want to get off your chest, here's your opportunity. Yeah, come across.
Hi, my name's Sim Simons from Multicultural Development Association. I'd just like to focus on where we are, this building. And this building was probably built about 1840s, was it? I don't know if anyone could correct me there, but anyway, it was when Georgian period, not too long after we went into the Victorian period. And Queen Victoria, if I'm not mistaken, was probably head of the Church of England Church. So we're in an institution that was very largely inspired by the teachings around Prophet Jesus. And as such, Australia and the Western Europe particularly is following a Middle Eastern notion, a Middle Eastern religion and a Middle Eastern set of values. So I'm really excited that as an Australian who was born here quite a while ago now, that we're getting more and more people coming here who understand the Judeo-Christian religions, and that particularly involves the Muslim community. And I would say, remind us of our values. The Christian values seem to be, in terms of conventional religion, seem to be dropping away in Australia. And I think it's really exciting that we've got people from the Muslim faith here who can remind us of our basic values. It's an exciting time for us if we chose to look at it that way. Thank you.
Floor is still open. Anybody else? You know, I'm going to have to wind this up now, won't you? Not quite. I've got some. Is Robert Cavallucci here? Okay. Well, if there's nobody else, I'm now going to call on the Honourable John McKell for a vote of thanks.
Well, thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together tonight for the organisers. This thing doesn't happen on its own. I want to particularly thank for the Iftar dinners all the women in the room who did all the cooking. I'm doing that deliberately because Janan Juskan has relatives at every one of these tables, and if I were you, I'd clap. So thank you to the Muslim women who put this together. I also want to acknowledge the award winners tonight. I've known Associate Professor Mohammad Abdalla for a while, and I very much have appreciated the conversations that we've had, and the people you have introduced me to have given me a greater insight into both where they're coming from and the things that Tim spoke about tonight. But this event is co-hosted in Parliament House by the Minister. The Minister gave an address, But is that all the minister does? I would have thought that the minister should be applauded tonight for this, that he came and he spoke about multiculturalism, but when the time came for someone to show leadership, strong leadership in an area he didn't have to, it was the minister who led the charge and helped put down those community people who wanted to raise that ugly head of racism. And Minister, I want to congratulate you for going to Ipswich and standing up for what is decent. And everybody here tonight does that. I also acknowledge the co-host, Desley Scott, not simply because she's been my neighbour for so many years, but because she lives and breathes what she says. Where every time she steps out of her office in Woodridge, every time she moves around a group in Logan City, like our friend from Waterford, she lives and breathes this stuff. And Desley, we wish you all the very best in your retirement and thank you for your contribution to the community. I want to also acknowledge Dr. Tim. Tim, thank you for being with us tonight. I couldn't help but be inspired by your qualifications. Many years ago, when I was a new member, I was seated and to be introduced by the then Premier Peter Beattie. And there was an array of great academics who'd been elected to the Parliament over the years. And Beattie got up and he said, you know, I want you to meet Matthew Foley. He's got a degree in law and he's got a degree in social science, and on he went about Matthew Foley, and I was third down the list. And then he got up to Paul Braddy and he said, and Paul Braddy, he's got a degree, and on he went about Paul Braddy, and I was the next one up. And somebody said to me, pushed me in the back and said, you better sit up and try to look intelligent. So Beattie gets to me and he said, John McKell, he's a new member. So Tim, I thought of all those qualifications and I thought of my first time back here, and thank you very much for being with us tonight. I want to, and I saved deliberately to last, Bob Atkinson. You know Bob as a humble police commissioner and a darn good one. I know Bob Atkinson as a neighbour. He was my neighbour for 14 years. And a darn good neighbour too. I have only one gripe. He never got knocked off once. I got knocked off 3 times. I used to point to them and say, what about that bloke over there? So it never did me any good, but he was a darn good neighbour. At least on his side of the street there was no crime wave. On mine, brother, it broke out. So, Bob, I'm glad you've been honoured tonight for what you've done and for what you did for the people of Queensland, and on a personal note, and how you helped us in Logan. I can't express that enough. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight you've heard about the commonalities. In my dotage, I've been able to travel a little bit. Last year I managed to travel to Turkey. I got to Ephesus. And the guide said to me, there's a postman. I said, take me over to him. So he did. I said, what's the mail service like here in Turkey? He said, oh, it's pretty good. Why do you ask? I said, well, I'm a Christian. One of our great philosophers, Paul, stood here at Ephesus and wrote a number of letters to the Ephesians. He said, yes. I said, well, I don't recall him ever getting an answer. I was just wondering if the service had improved a bit. But I then went on to the Middle East, to Jerusalem. Standing there in Jerusalem is an edifice built to the Islam religion. Those of you know it as the Dome of the Rock. I don't want to deal with the dome. I want to deal with the rock. because, and I know this is open to some dispute, but it is the rock where the prophet Abraham offered his son Isaac to a sacrifice. Those of you who are Christians know the rock as the place where Jesus cast the people out of the temple. But those of you who are of the Islamic faith know the rock, the sacred rock, as where the Prophet Muhammad prayed before he went to heaven and visited Mecca. My point is this, that no matter what you think your differences are, when you visit and overlook that rock, the three religions all come together. I want to leave you on this note. There's more that brings us together than ever divides us. Thank you so much for that.
Well, it's good to see that there's still an opportunity for John to be an evangelist if ever he needed to be. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Queensland Intercultural Society, I would like to express my appreciation for you all taking the time out from your busy schedule to be here tonight. Your presence and your support encourages us to promote goodwill and protect the freedoms and privileges we enjoy here in Brisbane and indeed in Australia. I wish you all a very good night, a safe trip, and above all, I wish you peace. May we all meet again in 2015, inshallah. Thank you.
Just a few questions about tonight. Okay, so is this your first Iftar dinner you've attended?
The one at Parliament House. I've been at two at people's homes last year and this year.
So what are your thoughts on Islam and Ramadan?
I think it's a very powerful practice. Talking to everybody who goes through the fast, it makes people realise what they have and what they can do. And I know that the purity of their bodies, etc. Quite interested in that, and we'll reflect on it a lot more. And being able to share the breaking of the fast with the Muslim people has been very, very special.
So what are your thoughts on interfaith dialogue?
Interfaith dialogue. Yes, I think interfaith dialogue is so important. I've been involved in lots of multicultural events with the Chinese people, the Korean people. I've been to Korea and I've travelled the world, etc. And I go out to the Griffith University to the Multifaith Centre, and I think it's so important for that dialogue to continue.
Excellent, thank you for your input. Okay, so as a person who works with multiculturalism, so what are your thoughts on interfaith dialogue?
Well, I must admit that it's only through us gathering and speaking to each other and listening and really getting to know each other that I find this community very warm and very approachable, and really it's a matter of, by understanding and knowing each other, then we really care for each other, So
we should definitely have more of these events?
Oh, I think it's wonderful. And I must say that the Interfaith and Cultural Dialogue Centre at Griffith University is a really, really special place. And I go to many events there, and I always find them very, very good, very diverse. And just being able to gather, I think it's a privilege to have people from all around the world, all the different faiths together, and I think it's wonderful. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Thank you, Des.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is this the first Ramadan Iftar dinner you have attended?
I'm sorry, I couldn't
Is this
hear
the
with
first
voice.
Ramadan Iftar dinner you have attended?
No, I've been to many such dinners in the past. I missed last year, unfortunately. I just couldn't be here. But it's wonderful to be here this evening, and in my term as Commissioner, in the 12 years that I was privileged to have that role, one of the most enjoyable aspects of that role was to be involved with multicultural activities, but within that again, to be involved with the Muslim community and to be involved with people such as Dr. Muhammad Abdalla, the late Haji Rain, who was just an outstanding person. As I understand it, he was the first Imam here in Queensland and was involved with the Holland Park Mosque. And people like Yasmin Khan and Sultan Dean who are involved in the Eid Fest, and so many other people within the Muslim community. And I was grateful for their support for me and the police department, for their leadership, and it was just an absolute privilege, you know, to be involved. So to be able to be back here tonight and be part of this dinner this evening, and it's such a special time of the year too, Ramadan and the conclusion of that. No, it's something that I hope I can stay involved with in whatever supportive way I can.
We'd love to. So your thoughts on interfaith dialogue? Do you think it should be encouraged in all communities?
Yes, absolutely. But I also think that we have, maybe I'm overly optimistic, but I think that we have the capacity here in Queensland, I can't speak for other places, but just the goodwill that exists here, the tolerance and the goodwill. Now, I know there are problems, and I know there are issues, and I know there's intolerance, and I know there's racism, and all those things exist. But I think that is far outweighed here by the potential and the goodwill. And I am so, I suppose, idealistic, if you like, and optimistic, that I think here in Queensland we can actually show the rest of the world, and I don't mean that in an egotistic or boastful way, but we can show the rest of the world what can be achieved in terms of people recognising the right of people to practice whatever religion they choose, or for that matter, not to practice any religion if they choose, and to respect and to acknowledge that. The right for people to all have equal opportunity, and because we have the fundamentals here. You know, we have a good criminal justice system that's fair and equitable. We have a democratic system where we elect local, state and federal government, you know, and people have the right to say what they choose to. We have freedom of speech. Hopefully we have an education system where people get to have the opportunity to reach their potential. So yeah, I think we have a lot of fundamental basics here that we can build on.
We are very lucky to be in Queensland and Australia, I think. Thank you and have a good night.
Thanks for the chance.
Okay, so first of all, congratulations on your award. So what are your thoughts on interfaith dialogue?
Sorry, say that again?
What are your thoughts on interfaith dialogue?
Interfaith dialogue is a very important component of any society if it is to prosper. And I think Australia can lead the world, in fact, in interfaith dialogue. We have so many opportunities here to allow us to bring people of diverse faith traditions to discuss in a respectful manner how best to serve their own country and concentrate on the commonalities and not so much the differences.
So your trip to Turkey, what was the best part about it?
Everything. Turkey's trip was absolutely fantastic. I loved it. My son loved it. He's 16. He didn't want to come back. He said, just leave me there. The people are wonderful. But also to get to immerse myself in that most wonderful civilization. And I think that civilization or the crossing over of civilizations really was manifested in the Hagia Sophia. When you walk into the Hagia Sophia, you see the Islamic presence, the Christian presence, and that interconnectedness. So really Istanbul or Turkey gives us that wonderful array and colorful mixture of religions, people, food. So yeah, everything was wonderful.
You got to experience firsthand the Hizmet and what we're doing, you know, in Turkey. So what are your thoughts on Hizmet?
I found that Hizmet movement is doing unbelievable type of work. In fact, I heard about it in the past, but I never got to appreciate the tremendous amount of social service that the Hizmet movement offers to people, to society, and so forth. It was an eye-opener to see people who were most humble, without the frills, without titles, without the decorations, yet doing a most needed, genuine service for society. Really, it was an eye-opener.
Thank you for your time and have a good Ramadan, inshallah.
No worries.
So is this the first time you've attended a Ramadan Iftar dinner?
This is my fourth dinner. Yeah.
The Parliament House?
Yes. I've been last, it's actually my third, sorry, I told the fib. Third year.
Before attending, what were your thoughts on Ramadan and Islam?
I've only been recently exposed to my friendships with a lot of the Islamic guys, and I've got a very strong support of the Ramadan and the Iftar dinner in particular, and I've got a really positive outlook as everything here and all the people here and what they believe in.
That's good. So do you believe in interfaith dialogue?
Absolutely. Interfaith dialogue, yes, absolutely. I don't know what else to say.
Well, thank you, Brad. It was nice for your input.
Good to see you, eh?
Thank
We'll
you.
see you soon.
Okay, was this the first time you've attended a Ramadan Iftar dinner that we have hosted?
Yes, certainly the first time I've attended one that you've hosted, and it's a great occasion for people to come and to be part of Ramadan celebrations. It's one of the great things of our society that we can share in the traditions and practices of others, and I'm certainly one who believes that you can learn a lot from pausing and reflecting on your values and those of others.
So you're a strong supporter of interfaith dialogue?
Very important. It's important that we understand each other better and that we can have conversations with those who are from different traditions. This is one of the challenges, but also one of the opportunities of living in a multicultural Australia. We have so much that we can learn from each other, provided that we approach things with the right ethos and the right level of maturity. And I'm optimistic that we can continue our work in interfaith dialogues.
So had you heard of the Hizmet movement before tonight?
Yes, and that's because I've had conversations with your colleagues in Sydney at the Affinity Foundation.
All right, well, thank you for being here tonight and doing a wonderful speech. It was very inspiring. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. We've been honoured to have you as a guest at our Iftar dinners for the past 6 years, I think it's been, our sixth Iftar dinner.
It's been a long while, and this is by far the largest one, but they're getting more popular every year. But you must thank the organisers. I know the work they put in behind the scenes. It's not just this night. I think the great thing that they have done is encourage the Iftar dinners. I love them. I've just met some people tonight who hosted me last year, and of course Abdul this year. They're great because you get to sit down with people, discuss things in their own home. And as I said tonight, always remember, it doesn't matter what your background, there's more to us that unifies us than divides us. Let me give you an example. There's no Muslim way to laugh, and there's no Christian way to cry. We're all people.
Okay. That's true. Thank you so much,
Good
Michael.
luck. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.